The Monetary Policy Board, at its meeting held yesterday, have decided to reduce the policy interest rates by 50 basis points. Accordingly, standing deposit facility will be 8.5% and standing lending facility will be 9.5%. Statutory reserve ratio will remain at the current level of 2%. There were several factors taken into consideration before the board arrived at the yesterday's decision. So board arrived at this decision after careful consideration of many factors. Among others, the following were the major factors considered: continued subdued aggregate demand conditions in the economy, and lesser than expected impact of recent changes to the value added tax and the removal of exemptions of value added tax on inflation, and well anchored inflation expectations, the absence of excessive demand, the absence of excessive pressures coming from external sector outlook, and also the need to continue downward trajectory on market interest rate, especially the market lending rate. So in addition to the policy rate reduction, the Monetary Policy Board also considered several other facts to decide on the following as well. So accordingly, it was decided to repeal the Monetary Law Order number 1 of 2023 that was imposed to set maximum interest rates on selected rupee denominated lending products as well as a cap on overall lending rates, which was issued in August. So in considering the decision to repeal this Monetary Law Order, the board was of the view that this order has contributed to the overall reduction in market lending rates. Therefore, it yielded the expected outcome. And also the limits on order are no longer relevant in the context that there have been further easing of monetary policy since then. So it was decided to repeal this order. And also, the Monetary Policy Board has decided to remove the remaining restrictions on standing deposit facilities with effect from 1st April 2024. Restrictions on standing facilities were imposed in January 2023. Subsequently, it was revisited in February. Accordingly, the standing restrictions on standing lending facilities was removed, and some relaxation was allowed to standing deposit facility. And the remaining restrictions has been removed with effect from 1st of April. So for this reason, the improvements observed in the domestic money market alongside improvement in liquidity conditions were considered by the board. So accordingly, these measures are expected to further support market-based transmission of monetary policy adjustments going forward. If I give you some updates on the recent macroeconomic development considered in the decision-making process, headline inflation has moderated in February compared to January. It has declined from 6.4% recorded in January to 5.9% in February, which was mainly supported by the reduction in non-food inflation category. Even though year-on-year food inflation increased in February, on a monthly basis, a reduction has been observed. So that indicates that food prices are easing in the recent months. And another point to note is that core inflation continued to remain subdued at the level 2.8% in February. Also, the realized inflation during the first 2 months have been mainly because of the impact of VAT has been lower than what was previously envisaged. So with this, the near term, the medium term outlook for inflation remains at the preferred level. So inflation is expected to converge to the targeted level in the period ahead. So compared to previous projections, headline inflation is anticipated to moderate in the forthcoming months. So this is mainly supported by the recent introduction to downward adjustment to electricity tariff, and also the observation of moderation in food inflation. Underlying inflationary pressures remain subdued, and the medium-term inflation is expected to stabilize at the desired level. On the economic growth side, as you all are aware, that a recovery has been observed in the domestic economic activity as expected. Accordingly, a favorable or notable growth has been observed in the fourth quarter of 2024. Breaking from 6 quarters of consecutive quarters of contraction, economy recorded 1.6% growth in third quarter of 2023 and further increase of 4.5% growth in the last quarter of 2023. This has helped to limit the overall contraction of the year to 2.3% compared to 7.3% recorded in 2022. So this growth momentum is expected to continue in the upcoming quarters as well. And the market interest rates have been continuously adjusting downwards in line with the monetary policy easing and also the reduction in risk premia after the domestic debt optimization operations. However, the space available for market interest rates has slowed in the recent, the pace of adjustment has slowed in the recent months. So in the table, we are showing the total change to the key market interest rates, mainly government securities yield, lending and deposit rates during 2023 compared to the policy rate changes and thus far during 2024. For the net change in policy interest rate, the reduction of 5.5%, you could observe that most of the interest rates have adjusted downward in double-digit levels because the market interest rates were elevated in 2022 and early part of 2023, and that got adjusted. And in the recent times also, in the recent months also, there has been a notable adjustment in government securities yield, and also deposit rates also have been adjusting downwards. However, the adjustment observed in lending rates have slowed in the recent months. The accommodative monetary policy stance is expected to encourage continued expansion in credit to the private sector by the banking system. The credit extended by the banking system has unexpectedly contracted in January, which is partly due to the effect of exchange rate appreciation and also the possibility of some post-festival settlements in January. Based on preliminary data available for February, we see a recovery in credit to a smaller extent. On the external sector side, merchandise trade deficit is estimated to have widened during first 2 months of 2024. Based on currently available provisional data for February, there has been an improvement in export performance while the imports have declined compared to the level observed in January. However, both exports and imports recorded a growth compared to the year earlier. So accordingly, during the first 2 months, the merchandise trade deficit has narrowed to around 0.9 billion. So however, the trade in services, mainly the earnings from tourism, have recovered significantly with notable improvement in tourist arrivals, and workers' remittances also continues its momentum. So during the first 2 months, workers' remittances have recorded 964 million, and earnings from tourism have been recorded at 687 million, and the tourist arrivals momentum continues in March as well. The gross official reserves have improved notably in the last few months, which was mainly supported by notable net purchases of foreign exchange by the central bank from the market. And as you all are aware, that a staff level agreement has been reached between the authorities as well as authorities and the IMF staff team. And reflecting the favorable developments in the domestic forex market with increased inflows and constrained outflows, exchange rate show a continued appreciation trend. And so far this year, exchange rate has appreciated by over 6%. So considering all these factors, Monetary Policy Board has decided to reduce the policy interest rates and repeal the administrative measures taken to improve the monetary policy transmission and to and also to remove the restrictions imposed on the usage of standing facilities. The board is of the view that further easing of monetary policy stance would provide the required space for market interest rates, especially the lending rates, to adjust downward further. That would support continued expansion in credit to the private sector. The board also stressed that the need for all financial institutions to take swift measures to reduce market lending rates to ensure that the benefits of monetary policy easing is adequately passed to the businesses and households.